Welcome everybody to the June Progressive Democrats of Howard County meeting. Thank you for attending. And first, thank you to our speaker of the night, District 1 County Councilmember Liz Walsh, who's actually my county council member. But before we get to her, we got a couple just usual club business stuff that we got to address. So first thing, for people who are new or not familiar, our monthly meeting day and time is usually the last Monday of the month at 7 p.m. We are, I think, sticking to Zoom for now. Who knows if that changes in the future, but for now we're sticking to Zoom. So I believe next month will actually be July 25th at 7 p.m. So that mark your calendars there. I think we're going to have a panel on unions and union organizing. So that's the plan for next month. We are a dues-based membership organization. So to be a voting member, you do have to pay dues. It's only a one-time yearly fee that you have to pay for dues, but this is how the club gets its funding and how the club is able to be effective. So it's $36 a year for just a membership for you. It's $50 for a membership for you and one other person. There is a dues waiver if you are not able to pay the dues, and you do not have to be a registered Democrat to be a Progressive Democrats of Howard County member. But we've always looking to expand the club. We do quite a lot, but the more people we have, the more that we can do. So we've got different committees or things we want to be committees, things like a candidate committee to help in the primary elections and soon to be general elections, international solidarity committee to cover, foreign policy, which we do cover from time to time, things like that. So please encourage people to become a member. And the way to become a member is we have two options for now. We have Venmo. So there's our username at Progressive HoCo. There's the link. And again, it's $36 for a membership for you, $50 for a +1 membership, or you can mail a check to us. There's the address, 6801 Oak Hall Lane. And there's actually a two-step membership process. It's not just simply paying dues makes somebody a member. You also have to get voted in by a majority of existing members at a Progressive Democrats of Howard County meeting. So you have to pay dues and get voted in at a meeting, not necessarily in that order, but both of those things do have to happen before you're officially a member. And so moving on, the treasurer's report. Curie sent that to us, to me earlier today. Got almost $1,500 in the bank plus a couple $100 in Venmo, though we will be making an expense of $117.14 in relation to what I think it was Mo was asking about earlier. We are finally getting Progressive Democrats of Howard County. We're getting two banners, I believe, or no, I can't remember if it's just one or two banners, but we're getting at least a banner for Progressive Democrats of Howard County. I think we should have that by 4th of July, and we will be marching in 4th of July parades. And there will be more information on how to march with us later on if you'd like to get involved with that. So yeah, just so I'm clear here, that $117.14 has not been spent yet, right? But we will spend that.
So we would need to vote, and then we would write a check for that amount.
Yeah, and vote like as an executive board.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, we'll discuss that as a board later on. But yeah, thank you for that treasurer's update. So new member voting. We've got a couple had a couple people submit their interest in the last month to potentially become members of our club. Always good to see that. I'm not sure which of them have and have not paid dues yet. But nonetheless, this first one I want to address is one that came up last week. That's Joan Pontius, who is also,
Jake?
yes.
So I think the only one that's paid from this list is Joan. She paid for her and for her husband.
Okay. Good to know. Okay. So we began discussing her membership last month, but it ended up getting tabled. And so Mo, I know you had sent me, and Joan is also a District 5 county council candidate. Mo, I know you had sent me some stuff on, Robert's rules and sort of the rules regarding tabling and how that's supposed to, be handled. But I looked at the screenshot that you sent me, and I'm pretty sure that was actually maybe not Robert's rules, and instead like the Maryland, or I'm not the Maryland, the United States Senate Rules of Order. I believe, but
yeah, I'm driving. I don't remember. No,
okay, that's okay. But
so,
Rick, are we? Rick is the sort of informal parliamentarian of that. Do you know how we tabled her vote last time? Are we able to vote?
It was a mixed rule. We called it tabling, but we said, but we'll vote next time. So it wasn't really tabling, but I would say if you table something, it means it's indefinite and you can then bring it off the table. But you would just do that by saying, I make a motion to bring it off the table.
Okay.
You
Well,
can get it either way.
okay.
This isn't automatic.
Okay. Well, all the other names besides Joan are new, but so I'm a motion that we revisit the Joan Pontius issue now and take it off the table and address the question of her membership. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
You should clarify what we're in favor of, whether we're in favor of the
Okay.
motion to take it off the table or the actual vote.
Okay. Yeah, this is just a motion. There's a motion just to take it off the table.
Okay.
but Jake, I bet probably you can refresh our maybe the issue that what we were discussed that time. Then time has passed,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
maybe that a lot of like improvement or some clarification was done. Joan Pontius, made some explanation, and some of the thing we must have that hurdles that we already overcame. So that's why I brought maybe just a few minutes explain what was our kind of like reservation and maybe we don't have anymore.
Yeah. And and it was I think Mo was the one who first, brought this to my concern. But basically, Joan lives in District 5. Of course, she's running for county council there, and there is there's I think one of the two mosques in the county is in right by, she lives right by it. I saw it when I went to her campaign event. She lives right by the mosque, and she's lived there for like over 20 years and was always supportive of the mosque being there when it was first created. But nonetheless, over the 20 years, there have been, several instances where, according to her, or at least in her perspective, she's saying like that the mosque wasn't following certain like lighting regulations, or, they weren't complying with their land use contract, according to her. And I guess she and other people on her street had issues with that. So Joan had filed, formal complaints with, with the county against, them using their lighting or whatever her gripes were. And this has been perceived by some as, stemming from, a place of sort of, Islamophobia or bigotry towards the mosque, and that these complaints are just sort of a medium to express that bigotry. But everybody can make up their own mind for themselves. Unfortunately, Joan is not here, but personally, I do believe that her grievances do come from a place of secularism and just wanting entity. She's passionate about zoning and land use regulations, and I think that's where the complaints stemmed from. And I like to think that had it been a church, a temple, or any non-religious institution, if they were making those same alleged violations, she would make the same complaints. I have no way to look into alternate reality to prove that, but that is what I believe, and I would not support her as a candidate if I felt otherwise. But that is just my personal thoughts. Mo, if you or anybody else would also like to speak on it, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, Jake, I just I asked one person who is to be the board of director of the mosque, and I just asked that, well, have you ever heard complaints such like that, So I just digged a little bit, and just I like to be very fair, and as you know that we like to be objective, and if somebody doesn't follow the ordinance, it doesn't matter who is. We all have to be on the same playing field. It doesn't matter whether it is in any institute from my faith or your faith, doesn't matter. We all have to follow by the rules and law. That's the beauty of United States, that everybody, no one is above the law, except probably Trump.
Yeah.
So Brooke said that if Joan has complained that after midnight somebody was playing basketball, definitely her complaint is legitimate. So yeah, and they should not do that, and they will definitely, that's not a right thing to do. But some light or something, they said those things I think was not ever been recorded properly, or light issue never been a problem from Joan's part. But what she said about after midnight, though it is only seasonal during Ramadan, some kids play basketball, but they warn those kids not to do that. So I think that's I got that information from inside.
Yeah, no, and good to know. And yeah, I said at the time, and I still, even to this day, would still like to see, the actual complaints themselves and what the nature of them were, and also the original land use contract to see, is this actually, against or not against the, whatever the regulations were. But that is, my belief is that, it did not stem from a place of hatred. And
Wait, I think that then I said, Joan, yeah. That's the reason that I read later. I did not put any objection to Joan. I said that, Joan, that that's all we care. We don't want to be part with any of our elected members, or we can, if that person has kind of very strong negative conviction, I shared with you about Modi and there's some kind of people. If you have that, then there is no room for it. Whether it is for any bigotry, nobody has, because that is the beauty of our slate member and our club, that we are very secular, we are open-minded, and we're tolerant, and will not allow those kind of things to exist.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, thank you for bringing that up, because that would be a problem if the club, if it was stemming from Islamophobia and the club was supporting that. So thank you for bringing that. So with no further ado, I'm all in favor of taking Joan's membership off the table and readdressing the situation, and then we can motion to vote unless there's other discussion. I see Ahmad just came off mute.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So all in favor, say aye. Or
Aye.
type
Aye.
Yes, aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Okay. Sounds like the ayes carry. So Joan is off the table. Since we do have a lot of names here, you know, I'm considering.
As a point of order, this is where we would normally have the discussion we just had.
Oh, okay.
Normally, you just go ahead and vote to take it off the table and then make the motion, then discuss the motion. So
Okay.
I make a motion to approve all of these members.
Oh, before you do that, and maybe Rick, procedurally, maybe you can correct me on this, but I did want to make a suggestion on how to handle the rest of the list. So I don't know when we could do that.
After a motion is made, that's when you discuss it. So if I make the motion to approve all of them, then you can address splitting the motion or changing the motion.
Okay. So you just made the motion, right?
Yep. Anybody second?
I'll second it. This is true.
Thank you. And now we should discuss it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thanks. So my suggestion is, I think one of the reasons, we state clearly in our bylaws, we want to make sure that we're, there's a, good vetting process, just like what we did earlier with the members. And I recognize, one name in there, Christine. I could be, so so what I was thinking was, unless, there are others who recognize those other names, and, maybe we could take some time to vet the other names. But, if there are, so if there aren't, if we're not familiar with the other names, then my suggestion is we take some time to vet them.
Yeah, I don't know anybody else besides Christine. So I guess I'd be comfortable with, I guess we would table those ones, or put it off to the next meeting. Does anyone have any issues with that?
I'm good with tabling.
I guess
So
that
we
would,
get to
that would be contradictory to Rick's motion, right?
It's okay to do that. It's just a change of direction. So do we want to vote? I suggest we split this and we vote on Joan and then discuss the rest.
We could do Joan and Christine, maybe.
Or Joan and Christine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. All right.
So I amend my motion to just consider Joan and Christine at this point.
Okay. Does it need a
Second.
second? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any discussion? Now is it discussion, Rick?
Correct.
Any discussion?
I don't know, Christine.
She is she's from Indivisible. She, she's on our email list, and when she got this email about this meeting, she sent it to all the Indivisible people and said, hey, if you're in District 1, you should really go to this. So I think she is, a big Liz Walsh supporter. Hury probably knows her better than I do.
Yeah.
Say more.
For what it's worth, yeah. Christine, she is the facilitator for the Defend Democracy action team in Indivisible. I think she's been doing it for a while now, and she's. I would say that she definitely shares the values of the club, and I would certainly support her, joining the club.
Okay, thank you.
Joel, I see you got your hand up.
Yes, she runs the Defend Democracy Indivisible team and is on a lot of the other groups' email lists and is always talking about calls that she's on and talking to Sarbanes and dealing with Common Cause and all these other groups that I can't remember all their names right now.
Yeah, so any other further discussion before we vote? Okay, sounds like not. All right, so all in favor of voting for Joan Pontius and Christine Lemmies as PDHC members, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Okay, so now we have to address the others, I guess.
So we could either table, which means we just don't consider it until someone brings it up again, or we can just definitively postpone it till the next meeting. I suggest we postpone it, but ask them, tell them that we'd like to meet them if they can come
Okay,
to the meeting. Maybe since they paid the dues, they're obviously interested, but if they can make the meeting, it'd be great so they can introduce themselves.
yeah. And they have not paid the dues, by the way.
Oh,
but
they have not.
They submitted a membership interest form on our website.
Okay, so maybe they're not really all that interested, so let's find out.
Yeah, okay.
Quick question. How do I know if I'm up to date with my dues?
Good question. Huri, do you happen to know off the top of your head if Eduardo has paid dues?
Not off the top of my head. I'll let you know, Eduardo, in a few,
you.
like maybe in 30 minutes.
Thank you.
Me too. I want to know. This is Lisette.
Okay,
Yeah, you're up to date, Lisette.
Because I think I paid for me and for one of my daughter. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
cool. So, yeah, I would agree with your suggestion, Rick, if we just put it off till the next meeting. If that's okay. So I guess I'm a motion that we postpone considering these other people's memberships until the next meeting. Is there a second?
Second it.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Aye.
Aye.
I
All opposed, say nay. Okay, sounds like the motion carries. Okay, well, congrats to Joan. Well, Joan is now officially a member because she's paid, and Christine will be a member upon payment of dues. So next up, we've got some upcoming events. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., there's a redistricting study feedback session at Reservoir High School. The next day on Wednesday, June 29th at 7 p.m., there's another redistricting study feedback session, this one at Oakland Mills High School. On the 4th of July, there will be 2 parades happening. One at Longfellow. At that one, you have to meet up at 9:15, and one in River Hill at 8 a.m. And Progressive Democrats of Howard County will be marching in both of them, as well as, you know, a lot of members of the HoCo for Us slate for Democratic Central Committee that are club members. So there will be a sign up sheet later on that I can send in the chat if people want to, you know, march in the parade with us, and we will have our banner in time for that, luckily. So I encourage people to march with us in those parades on 4th of July. Also, early voting coming up. 5 early voting centers at Longreach, Howard, Reservoir, Marriotts Ridge, and Wilde Lake High Schools. You know, we want to be out there for our candidates, handing out their literature, especially District 1 and District 4, Liz and Deb. So we also have some volunteer spreadsheets for that we can send in the chat as well. And then, of course, Election Day itself is Tuesday, July 19th. So short update on our last meeting was we did votes on endorsements, which candidates that we wanted to endorse. And we did send out the results via email. We've posted on social media, but this is our first meeting since. So in terms of who won our endorsement in State Delegate District 13, it was Jen Terrasa. State Delegate District 9A, Chao Will, who's on the Board of Education currently. Harry Dunbar won the endorsement for County Executive. Liz Walsh, of course, our guest for the night, won the endorsement in District 1 for County Council. Deb Jung in District 4 for County Council. Our newest PDHC member, Joan Pontius, got the endorsement in District 5, who just also qualified for the Citizens Election Fund, which is historic because, you know, nobody thought a non-incumbent could qualify for that program. And, you know, she did it, and on very short notice too. So congrats to Joan. Let's hope she can take down David Young in District 5. And then for Board of Education, we endorsed Meg Ricks and Julie Hotopp. So that is the update on who we endorsed. Congratulations, Liz and all the other candidates. If in case you're looking for ways to help out, you know, if you want to volunteer with, well, we've been knocking doors as a club for County Council member Deb Jung for a while. If you'd like to get involved with that, I'll put these links in the chat. Looks like I'll have to open them up one by one, but we've got Deb Jung door knocking volunteer sign up link. We've got the early voting volunteer sign up links, and then we've got the 4th of July parade sign up link. So I will put all of that in the chat for people to sign up if they're interested. And no, Drew, not this year. There's not early voting at the at least not to my, I mean, to my knowledge, it's just these 5 high schools from everything
Okay.
I've
I
seen.
thought I saw that somewhere today. If I find an actual site on where I saw that, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Oh,
Liz
it's
is
Dropbox.
Dropbox. Okay.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
The literature for the club that presents the endorsements as well as for both the Central Committee and the other folks. What's the status of that?
Yeah, so, you know, Harry was suggesting that we basically turn this endorsement graphic, we turn this into a piece of campaign literature. This can be on one side, and then the other side can be the HoCo for us slate for Democratic Central Committee on the other side. And yeah, he was suggesting, you know, we have, you know, almost $1,500, so we probably could afford to, you know, print a couple hundred pieces of literature, hand it out on early voting, handing it out on election day, maybe even hand it out on 4th of July. And that was my goal, was to get these printed by 4th of July. But basically there's a, you know, what I think I told you, Harry, is like, as long as everything is like legal and on the up and up, I'm more than happy to do that because we do have the money. So first I had to like just check to see what needed to be done, because usually on campaign literature, you have to put an authority line. The authority line is usually whatever your campaign finance entity is registered with the state, but we don't have a campaign finance entity registered with the state. So I didn't know if that meant we can't produce the lit. So I called the Board of Elections. They said clubs can produce the literature, but that you need to put the authority line of all the candidates who are on who are featured on the lit. And so I was okay with that, but then I thought, is that going to be a problem with the citizens election? And she said we had to put their authority lines, and then also each of the campaigns has to report it as an in-kind contribution. And I thought, is that going to be an issue with the citizens election fund candidates? I don't know. So basically I sent an email to the Board of Elections, and then I also saw there's another, instead of adding everybody's authority line who's featured, it looks like, I think Joel Hurwitz actually sent me some information. It looks like there is an option where you can say basically none of the candidates featured have authorized it. It was paid for by Progressive Democrats of Howard County. So I don't know if that's an option too, because that wouldn't be coordinated with the campaigns really. But nonetheless, I put it all in a question to the Board of Elections in an email because the woman on the phone didn't know the answer. So I sent that email, I think on Friday. I have not heard back yet. So I have not placed a lit order, but I do think it's a good idea still if we're allowed to do it, Harry.
Thank you.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I will put these links in the chat in terms of, what we've been up to. We've been up to quite a bit since the endorsement meeting. We submitted a written testimony in favor of rejecting the county budget because it, had a lot of sort of giveaways to special interests and not enough funding for actual needs of the county. So we wrote a testimony that they should reject it, but it did get passed, I believe. And then we also wrote testimony in favor of the need to amend the rules of procedure for the zoning board in the county. More specific due process, give the board subpoena power to question, county agencies and whatnot, and not make it just optional, not give the county executive the option to deny that they are questioned. So we also did a podcast episode with former Board of Education member in Howard County, Alan Dyer. We've done several episodes of a mini series interviewing several of the HoCo for Us slate candidates. And then we put out a statement against the smear against Progressive Democrats of Howard County endorsed candidate Deb Jung. Won't go into that because we already sent an email on it, did a podcast episode on it, and there's not too much more to say. But we might have an event coming up on July 5th, sort of targeted towards real legitimate racial issues in Howard County that are not being addressed and that are being ignored, while smears like this are upheld as racial issues. And then last, we had we co-hosted a local pro-choice rally yesterday that had amazing turnout, and thank you to everybody who helped put that event on together. So that is what we've been up to, and no huge updates on the no developer donation campaign pledge. I think basically all the candidates who were willing to sign on have probably done so by now, but we did have a meet and greet for all the pledge candidates, and I was not able to make it, but from my understanding, it went very well. And yeah, Carla's correcting me. The pro-choice rally was actually on Saturday, not yesterday. My apologies. But very last thing before we get to our guests, and I'm sorry, Liz, to keep you waiting, but Progressive Democrats of Howard County has a real big opportunity here. We'll probably have to more aggressively address this after the primary when we've got a little bit more time. But basically, we have the opportunity to become an official chapter of the statewide organization Progressive Maryland, which is part of the nationwide network called People's Action. Very solid and respected, leftist organizing, network with groups all over the country, and Progressive Maryland is the Maryland chapter of them. And I think this is definitely something that the club should consider. It would give us the ability to have van access so that we can actually knock doors, not just during election time using the van access of our endorsed candidates like Liz or Deb, but we can actually have our own van to do our own door knocks whenever we want for whatever we want. In terms of what we would have to do to make this happen, it's actually a fairly low bar that we have to meet. We only have to get 15 people to become dues paying members to Progressive Maryland. and I've already become a dues paying member. Several of us have already become dues paying members. So we're already partially there towards that goal of 15. It's really like $10 a month. So it is kind of, it's more significant buy-in than like the Progressive Democrats of Howard County, dues, but nonetheless, I think we would get, a lot of sort of legitimacy and more resources from this. Maybe some of our local elected officials might take us more credibly if we have the backing of Progressive Maryland. So there is a $5 per month option as well, though. So I encourage people to consider becoming a member of that. I'm going to put that link in the chat here. Here we are. Yes, and so with that out of the way, I hope people can become a member. And yeah, now, of course, the main thing we all came for, and that is County Council member, District 1 Howard County Council member and Democrat, progressive Democrat, I should say, the most progressive Democrat on the county council, probably by a decent bit, actually. But thank you to, again, my county council member, Liz Walsh. When she first got elected in 2018, I was actually in college. I was following politics a lot, but I was on the Eastern Shore, so I wasn't following Howard County politics. But I remember hearing like that there was some really crazy primary election result. Some woman won by like only 2 votes or 6 votes, and then I researched and I saw like, oh my God, that's my district. And my mom was really pissed about the election results because my mom's very conservative. So she was a big John Weinstein fan. And so I figured, if my mom was a Weinstein fan, then it's probably a good thing that this other woman, Liz Walsh, took him down. And little did I know when I graduated college and came back, started getting involved, that, this wasn't just a small step up from what we had before. This this woman is the real deal, whether it's her standing up on the ICE contract or fighting back on the rampant developer pay to play that's happening in the county. But with no further ado, I want to introduce our guest of the night, County Council member Liz Walsh. Liz, you could talk about, you want to introduce yourself, talk about, what you've done the last 4 years, why you're running for re-election, what you want to work on moving forward. Talk about anything and everything that you want. The floor is yours, but thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Progressive Democrats of Howard County. I so much appreciate what you guys have done in this election cycle, particularly the no dark money, the no developer money pledge. I think that's really changed the game, and an individual candidate couldn't do it. It took like a group of groups, really, right, to get it in place. And I hope that in combination with the Citizens Election Fund, it was genius timing, is really going to hopefully change the way at least we see local politics go down, especially if some of us keep winning, right? Because we in District 1, in that campaign against John Weinstein, we basically took the no developer pledge before there was, something to take credit for. And the fact that we could take out a pretty popular incumbent without relying on that kind of funding, but exclusively reliant on grassroots money, but even more so grassroots organization and labor to get into office, it was a big deal then. So I'm glad you heard about it on the Eastern Shore. But I hope it's a bigger deal in that it sets this precedent that if I can do it, pretty much anyone can do it, because look at this clown show. But I don't know, if you guys wanted to ask questions, I'm happy to do that. If you want me to jibber jab about the last 4 years, I'm also happy to do that, or what I have in mind for the future. I guess if you wanted me to say, you know, the things that brought me into office 4 years ago are the same kind of things that drive me to run for reelection now. I would say, if anything, I'm even more cynical about how local government works and what priorities are and what motivations are, how decisions get made. Now that I'm almost kind of on the inside, it's even less assuring in terms of whether what's happening at the local government level is happening for the public good or for other less defensible reasons. And so I think transparency and shining a light on that kind of stuff is actually going to really centrally is going to be a central focus of what we're trying to do at the legislative level in the next 4 years, were we to succeed in winning both the primary and the general. I will say, frankly, we haven't had a whole lot of success in what we tried to pursue from an environmental standpoint, from a human rights standpoint, from a common sense standpoint, from an affordable housing standpoint, from a schools planning standpoint. We didn't have a lot of success in our first 4 years when we had a county executive who had the specter of reelection over his head. If that county executive stays the same and as unpleasant as these first 4 years have been, in large part because of some of what he has and hasn't done, I certainly don't want to see a Republican in that seat. But if the current executive succeeds in winning his reelection bid, we don't see a whole lot of legislative action coming out of us. So we're really going to pivot to more kind of behind the scenes advocacy, I think, and building relationships with the state and even the federal agencies and elected officials so that we can keep moving pieces behind the scenes. Because we saw this in Camp Ilchester, we saw it in other places, that we can be just as effective behind the scenes because people know my reputation. They know that I speak truthfully. They know they're not always going to agree with what I say, but I'm going to give it to them straight. And if it's something I care about, I'm going to pursue it, like crazy. So I think building that kind of reputation has hopefully given us more kind of power to make that move in the next 4 years. Again, if we're to do that, because I don't see a lot of legislative successes coming D1's way if the council and the executive look a lot like they do right now in the next 4 years. Looking backwards though, and those of you who, I see lots of people on this call who see me personally more so than some of the others. I am never going to be a Pollyanna yay person. Like, that's just not my personality, and I'm sorry if you need that. And I know that a lot of time people are like, God, Liz, you look really, it's unhappy, it's a grind. It's totally a grind. It's totally miserable lots of times. The hardest thing about this job is the interrelationships with people that I thought I was saying the same things as 4 years ago. I think that's the most frustrating thing about this job I find myself in is I thought, 4 of us on a council and 1 of us in an executive seat were all shooting for the same goals when we were in the same position 4 years ago. And it turns out we weren't. And, there are some Nicoles on here, right? Like, she can tell stories, man. Getting cut off at the knees over and over again by people that you would think you would be working with does take a lot. But again, I am driven to be in this position. I wasn't happy to start with, let's be honest, right? Like, it's just not my thing. So we're going to keep at it. And like I said, we're going to figure out different ways to succeed and find success, even when the traditional, I'm going to legislate and make laws and, and that's what legislators do. We're going to find success wherever we can take it. And looking back, I don't look back and think, oh my God, that was terrible. I have 3 bills that I always point to as like my proudest moments as a legislator. And Nicole, I think you were there for maybe 2 at least of them, maybe 3. The first one was right out the gate in 2019. We put together what we called the Lower Patapsco Watershed Bill, and it did everything I said I would do as a candidate. It addressed all of the environmental gaffes, I think, that exist and tried to fix them just in the Old Delegate City watershed, because at the time, development in that 4 square miles was stalled so that we could theoretically change our environmental regulations and anything else that needed changing before we opened the literal floodgates to continuing development. And so, I had a legislative action plan as a candidate, and it talked about everything from steep slopes to floodplains to trees to everything, you name it. And we just went through all those sections one by one and said, not everywhere, you know, don't freak out. This is just 4 square miles in this county. And if we can fix it there, then maybe we can show that it, you know, it's not going to shut everything down. We can still develop. We just don't have to do it at such exorbitant cost, not just, you know, not just financial, but environmental and quality of life, all those things. That didn't pass. But we had such a coalition in support of that, from local organizations all the way up to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, state level organizations testifying in support of this bill. We had meetings at the Miller Branch Library where people who were never involved in politics were learning how to write in and send in emails and testify. It was so empowering, I thought, for people who, you know, generally maybe, if not a distrust, have a kind of apathy, particularly at the level of local government, where they're like, you know, who cares? I care a lot. And as long as there are people who are still caring as much as I am, I'm going to go as hard as I can. So that was CB 38 in 2019. I wrote that bill, right? I wrote that bill. Actually, this is the week I go on vacation every year. And I wrote that bill on vacation in the same place, like, open my hand. So the second bill that I also wrote, because we have legislative analysts that theoretically are supposed to write our bills, but if I care a lot about them, then, you know, Miss Fussy has to get in there and write it herself. I did that for the ICE bill. And that bill particularly, see Laura Liskin, thank you. That bill, you know, we knew it was on the radar. Sanctuary bill was one of the big differentiators between me and John Weinstein when I ran in 2018. It was, you know, it was a deal breaker for me. And in a swing district like District 1, it was probably not politically savvy to knock doors and say, this is a deal breaker for me, and we can't sit on this issue. But I did, and I will continue to, including with this referendum that's coming up in November. But the ICE bill, we knew we didn't have the votes, both at the executive level and on the county council. But I will say there were 2 or 3 occurrences that happened over that summer. Why am I forgetting his name? Horace Alice was like an independent journalist, and he wrote this great piece that had like interviews with people who had been pulled over by Howard County Police Department and turned over to ICE. And that, again, was a deal breaker. I was like, we are now complicit in this. We are turning human beings over to a Donald Trump government to do God knows what to them for however long. That was untenable to me. But we also saw a real coalition, and unfortunately it was after the murder of George Floyd, but a real coalition of all of the progressive groups, including some new like youth-led groups, getting behind this issue, as long as other, you know, with other human rights issues, and saying, this really matters to us. And so at that point, even knowing we didn't have the votes, it was just me and Deb at the time. I was like, we're doing it. We cannot wait. I will not wait. So the reason I love that bill, other than got vetoed and then eventually we did get the thing we want, is everything in that bill, because I wrote it, not here on my front porch. I pulled language that the Calvin Ball administration had signed on to in other federal lawsuits where they had joined as amicus, you know, where they said, we, you know, Howard County, because we're so progressive, we care about people, you know, in all these complaints that had been filed on behalf of these array of, you know, progressive or at least democratically inclined jurisdictions. We pulled all that language out. So when people would complain about the flowery language and how she's getting it all so political, why is she doing this? It was the administration's language that they'd signed on to. That was largely the stuff that most people that you would think would have no controversy with this bill had the biggest beef with, which I thought was hilarious in an otherwise kind of terrible situation. But hopefully, as you all know, we did not succeed legislatively in that endeavor, but ultimately the administration itself decided it's time to let this thing go. So huge success. And then the third one, and I think Nicole, you were gone by then, was the Rental Protection and Stability Act. We have an Office of Law that works with the council that is a pretty tough obstacle to overcome a lot of times. And hopefully most of you know, for 20 years, I was in private practice in law. Like I went to law school, I passed the bar, I practiced law for a long time in litigation and both in kind of contract negotiating, you know, all kinds of aspects, definitely not on the legislative side, but I would not, I'm trying to read your comments and I'm not going to try because it's too hard. I would not, if I wasn't a lawyer, I think I would take a lot of the advice that Office of Law gives us and say, okay, and then walk away. But because I can read the cases that they cite to sometimes, or because I just know that you can make different arguments to support whatever, whatever outcome you want as a lawyer. That's kind of our job sometimes. That when Office of Law tells me no, lots of times they'll say, try again, come up with a different reason. And on the rental protection thing, we could see really soon, as soon as that pandemic hit, that the issue of rent instability, of evictions in the wake of a pandemic, when we at the beginning didn't even know what was causing it or how to avoid it, that was a real problem. We were trying to figure out how to local level to legislate any kind of relief in that arena. We kept getting told no and no, no. And then we saw Will Jawando in Montgomery County file a bill that it did exactly what we had been asking to do. And that Office of Law had been telling us we could not do at the local level. So over a weekend, we just struck out Montgomery County and changed all the other things that wouldn't have applied to us and fixed it so it would. And lo and behold, we had emergency legislation. This is the only one of the 3 bills I'm telling you about that actually passed. But in emergency legislation that we filed in the midst of budget, which is brutal, at the beginning of a terrifying pandemic, we got Rental Protection Act passed. Even David Jung, the Republican, voted for it on an emergency basis, that it put in place all kinds of protections, namely that your rent couldn't increase, you couldn't be charged late fees, and this applied to both residential and commercial leases for the entirety of, we didn't know how long it was going to be then, the entirety of the state of emergency that Hogan had declared in 90 days afterwards. So it went on for 2+ years, and hopefully it kept a lot of people in their homes. And certainly at least kept them in a little bit better fiscal or financial position than they would have otherwise. So that's looking back. I think I told you before. I see hands up, so it's always my preference to actually address what people want to hear about. So if it's okay with you, Jake, I would like to take questions.
Absolutely. I think Mo had his hand up first.
Liz, I just wanted to find out that, I probably that what is your strategy of the campaigning? Because probably that we are campaigning almost for a month, with Deb Young in different areas. So it seems like that we never got an opportunity to campaign with you to any of your areas. Do you have any plan for doing that, or you don't think you don't need to do any campaigning? You're gonna win anyway.
No, I'm not. Well, I mean, I hope that I win. My smart aleck crack is I've been campaigning the whole time, right? As soon as I got into office, I started doing exactly what I said I was going to do. And I've done consistently years 1, 2, 3, and 4, the same exact thing that I said I would do. What I stand for and what I support and don't did not change in the last 6 or 8 months, like I have encountered in some others. I campaign all the time, and that's my short answer. But no, I can't take for granted anything. We were late getting out the gate because of the Citizens Election Fund and some of the procedural hurdles. Watching Deb go through that ringer, I will tell you, it did not look appealing. But we kept doing the math, and we're like, the upside is so much money, like gazillions of dollars more than we ever saw in combination of both the primary and the general. So we did decide to do that, but that meant we needed all new everything, right? New website, new slogan, mailers just arrived, I think this week. Hopefully, if you're like a super Dem and you live in D1 and we thought you were going to vote or had requested a mail-in ballot, you should have gotten a mailer from us this week. We'll probably do a couple more of those, but we are going to put together door knocking crews once we see the data from Van come down and see who hasn't voted or who hasn't sent in their mail-in ballot, because we think we're going to be able to in real time track that. We're going to be July 4th parading. And we're really going to be pushing out, actually in the next 2 weeks, the forums, right? All of them were videotaped, and most people I don't think actually watch all of them, but if we cut out certain clips, then people will see that, and if it piques their interest, then maybe they go and watch this one that is the issue that they really care about, or this organization that they really care about. But I definitely think I think Deb's candidate is more serious. I have deliberately not, is that the right word? I have deliberately not, I'm sticking with that, engaged directly. I'm not going to say anything about the District 1 primary challenger. Like I can't take it seriously. I mean, when you see the signs go up on those properties, I mean, there was a sign at Dorsey Overlook. I can't, you know, and the MBIA, the Maryland Building Industry Association, is holding the fundraiser, or you see the campaign donations, and it's literally a who's who of who wants to get, you know, the most public benefit out of the development of land. If I had guessed the list, I couldn't have done it more perfectly. You know, the Turf Valley, the Dorsey Overlook, the River Watch, all of those terrible developments that don't have to be necessarily, you know, terrible, but they can, and so they will in most parts. So it's hard for me, Mo, to engage there, because and same thing, you know, I sit next to that person at forums, and I think I work so hard at this job and try and learn every detail of every aspect that comes before us as much as humanly possible. And this is this is what I get in return. Like, how does that make any sense? But I am struggling with how much do I engage on that, and how much do we just try and get our message out. And I think the 5th graders in every simulated congressional hearing that I've ever been to in my 5 years of doing it has always said negative campaigning is not good. So we're going to get our positive message out there. We're going to have some door knocking crews. We've gotten, you know, we know where we probably want to hit more so than others, even without that vendetta coming back. And so we'll definitely keep you guys apprised of where you might join us, or where you might maybe just fold us into what you're doing independently. But that's where the campaign is, in the primary.
Cool. Thank you. And do you know if your campaign literature has come in yet?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. Okay, cool. Well, I'll maybe follow up with Wendy or something, but I think Deb, just as last weekend, like, she's still going to keep knocking doors, but she's now knocked through, I think, all the precincts in her district. So we are ready to shift over to Liz Walsh mode. So maybe even as soon as this weekend. So I will contact Wendy or Becky Vivret about that potentially. But thank you, Liz. So
I offered Liz, like, if she needs help for banners or flyers or whatever, because before of July 4th, that, you know, same thing, I told her that we can help her to get those done if she needs it.
Mo's got a good print shop guy. We've used him a couple times.
Yep, I saw that, Mo. Thank you. And we'll be, Font Hill has a car parade. I did it last year. I think it was their first year. It was like a COVID thing. So that's where I will be. Actually, I'm trying to let them, I'm trying to have them let us, I'm exhausted. We want to do bikes instead of a car, but we don't think they're going to let us do that. But it would be so fun to have, you know, little kids love to ride around their bikes and put, like, you know, streamers and stuff. But I think I'm going to lose that battle, and we're going to be in a car, but whatever.
Well, hey, you might be on bikes. We're going to be walking in on cars, and Joan Pontius will be riding a horse in the parade.
I believe that.
I believe.
Well, I believe that.
So
that's funny.
A lot of different animals.
So that's on brand. It's so on brand. So on
Very
brand.
much so, yeah. But okay, I know Lori's got her hand up too.
I just wanted to say, Liz, that I'm here and really ready to work, and anything you need, let me know. All right. And you've got my contact information. I have a sticker on my car, but I don't have a sign.
Okay.
And I'm happy to distribute signs and such things for you. So just let me know.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Lori.
Cool. And Yuri?
Yeah. So Liz, you mentioned earlier well, you were lamenting some of the lack, like the lack of progress on some of the issues there, and I would disagree with that. I think there's been a lot of progress, based on what you and Deb have advanced. At the very least, prevented a lot of damage, from taking place. So having said that, can you? I think I think it would help for for us to maybe can you talk about that county resolution, if you can remember some of the facts, the county resolution that led to the appropriation of land. I think Dorsey, it was quote unquote for affordable housing, and it turned out that it was not. Maybe talk about that a little bit, or if not, some of the challenges that you faced, with in interacting with the county and the county administration.
Sure. So I think the only legislation that came before us about the Dorsey Overlook project was CR 89. And my sense is that and Nicole turned her camera on good because she was there. I think that one came before us pretty early, and we're like, hey, we're D1. Isn't there like some kind of legislative courtesy? This is my district. We have some real concerns about this developer because it is Kirby development. They did the 2 projects at Riverwatch 1 and 2 in Elk Ridge. And they're super, edge to edge, right on like a cliff going down into Patasko River. Nicole and I would go and see if the gazebo was still there because we didn't think it would make it this long. It was so ridiculously close to steep slopes. I'm sure they never replanted the, forest conservation area that they slashed through to do various things that had nothing constructive about them. But we had all kinds of concerns with that. We met with the developer, Kirby and his son, represented by Tom Cole of Tolkien and O. And the real objection I always had to that particular development at Dorsey Overlook, and for those of you who don't know, it's at the intersection of Columbia Road and 108. So the old Allview Inn is now Leland's. All of those properties between like Leland's and Old Columbia Road on 108 have all been aggregated into this one kind of super site. And that was this proposed development of, at the time, it was touted as being affordable housing. I think it was like a 50-50 split, maybe. No, maybe not.
No, the first one was for 55 plus. And then when they couldn't get that, then they went for affordable housing. And then after the district redistricting, then they went for just anybody. They didn't have to worry about kids and AFO.
That's right. So, because initially they were, that area was districted to go to maybe Northfield and Dunlogan Middle School. And then when redistricting happened in the midst of our first term, then that area was switched to Wilde Lake Middle School.
Right.
And so therefore,
I forgot the other elementary school, but the one near the mall.
Yep. And we found out when that happened, and in the midst of all this CR 89 and stuff, is that the school system actually uses a different student yield calculation depending on which school you're districted for. So that same, whatever it was unit, not 55 plus, but if it was a family unit in Dorsey Overlook at the same street address, depending on whether it was going to Dunlogan Middle or Wilde Lake Middle School, the school system was using a different student yield rate. We're like, it's in the same place. It's got the same, family. The one mom with the however many babies, like that family still has the same number of kids, whichever school they're going to. And the school system, nope, it's different. We use historical data, trust us, Liz. So CR 89, we actually got stalled for a little bit because of neighbors like Lori kept bringing up this issue of this isn't, this design has been terrible. This developer is terrible. This is not the right use for this property. When we sat down and met with the developer and the attorney, I mean, my concern was this is an ecological nightmare. It's immediately upstream from Centennial Park and the neighborhood homes. It's got this adorable name, something hollow, that floods now before they pave that thing. And this was another one of these gazebo situations. Literally 4 years ago, I was making a crack that was a gazebo marks the spot of like the worst ecological atrocity, because there's only 2 designers in this county, and they have like this bizarre tell where if they're really encroaching upon wetlands and steep slopes and old forest and a stream buffer, then they put a gazebo there so you can see like the ecological destruction. It's this bizarre tell, but I was like, look for the gazebo, because if the gazebo's in the plan, it's a nightmare, and you shouldn't need this many waivers to get your project done. And if you do, then that means you shouldn't be developing on this much of the land. Again, you can pull it back and have something there. But Lori and her neighbors were going to places like the design advisory panel over and over again. And the architects, the volunteers, the service, the volunteer people who man that board would repeatedly say, this is hideous, stop doing this. we went to the hearing examiner case because in addition to all of the environmental waivers that were being applied for and granted, like candy, they were going to the hearing examiner and asking for waivers for all the setbacks. So it really was going to be developed just like River Watches 1 and 2, all the way out to the property boundaries, to the point where if you're walking on Columbia Road, there's going to be this wall because they can't even grade it right. You're going to be this pedestrian on a sidewalk with this wall smack up against your face. And same thing, the hearing examiner, 100% wrong, saying, Liz, you should not be testifying, and all these other neighbors should not be testifying about your environmental concerns because that does not matter. That's not what the code says. The code obligates the hearing examiner to go to the site and take into consideration things like downstream runoff. And she was rejecting that kind of evidence wholesale. So we had been following this case in the approval process at all levels, and we thought we had it, at least in a position where it was very clearly not politically savvy to proceed with. And they just let it sit there for a while and then waited for their time and came back and got it through anyhow, right? They lean on the council members that they always lean on, and those council members flaked. And in the process, the developer was able to negotiate down whatever it wasn't even a purchase price. It's a forever time lease of old Columbia Road as it kind of snakes in front of the property. So now on the 108 side, instead of having some kind of, lawn or native plant or water garden feature, instead of having that on the frontage of the state road, you're gonna have the same Jersey barriers that are there now because they're gonna use that old roadway for excess parking. I mean, just catastrophically stupid design and land use all in one place by someone who gave so much money to my predecessor in D1 and gave so much money to my fellow colleagues on the council now who have no other affiliation with any developer who's working exclusively in District 1 other than they vote on things like CR 89. So the end result was, and Nicole did the math, the total site is something like, I don't know, 5 or 6 acres because they bought like 4 or 5 parcels. Nicole's probably pulling it out. And, and we did the math, and the math was per acre what that developer paid to aggregate all those different sites, because there's 4 or 5 homes and maybe a church in there, costs over $1 million an acre. But when the county sold them that last parcel that they needed in order to make the property whole and gain access to and have excess parking, we allowed them, I don't know, whatever long-term lease was, for $9,000. $9,000 for an acre of property in Howard County in District 1. That's the kind of stuff I can't explain. Like, it's
Liz, don't forget about the traffic. They never did a traffic study. So that was.
Wait, I forgot there's more. So I didn't find out about this until this year's budget session, right? Because I know I have this rap in some circles of being, anti-affordable housing, even though I do a lot of stuff that actually would advance the cause. And always it's Dorsey Overlook that's, strung out as look how mean Liz is. And, I think in large part that's because the storyteller of this is the lawyer who represents the developer who builds that singular project, but that never comes up. But anyhow, so as we're trying to watch the Department of Housing and Community Development to say, why? If we have this 10 or 15% requirement, why is there not affordable housing everywhere? Like, it's because she's exempting them one by one as they're building up. So what we found out right before budget, because our auditor's office that's associated with the council's office did an audit of the Department of Housing and Community Development and found out that that department does audits of its own properties to figure out, who is actually providing on a rental basis the affordable housing. But also as part of that audit, we got all these alternative waiver agreements that I hadn't seen before. And what happened was, because we knew, every budget cycle would come up, we're going to throw more cash money at Dorsey Overlook. So that's why I was on the list. We're like, where's the free money we're sending Dorsey Overlook this year? They're like, no, it's not happening. But we found it because what had happened was, there is Morris Place in Elk Ridge that was supposed to have X number of for sale affordable housing units, right? That's like the unicorn. There's no affordable for sale housing units, but Morris Place was supposed to provide them and said they would. Like, their signed plans say we're going to provide them. And then the Department of Housing and Community Development excused them And in these notes that we got from the auditor right before budget, the reason that they were excluded is because there's a fox in the backyard. Is because it was on Route 1 and it was really loud. There's a lot of trucks on Route 1 and they couldn't sell those units for what they thought they would. What? This is like 10 or 15% of a complete development that is all situated in the same place, proximate to Route 1 and aforementioned truck traffic that are all being sold at market rate. But for some reason, it was not possible to sell the even further discounted affordable housing units. So this is what our director of housing and community development did. She accepted $56,000 per unit for 19 units and excused the developer of Morris Place, which is represented by the same attorney who represents Kirby Developer. So she excused Morris Place and Beezer Homes in Elk Ridge for supplying 19 for sale affordable units, accepted $56,000 each for them, which I don't do the math, 56 times 19 is something like 1.4 million. The 1.4 million goes to Dorsey Overlook for them to provide additional units. And that was the cash money that went to Dorsey Overlook off cycle in the budget year when I kept cutting it from what was showing up on the budget reports. And what I didn't appreciate until this year was what we got in exchange was a loss of those for sale units, because what's always been proposed, whether 55 plus, significant percentage of affordable housing or just market rate apartments, it's always been apartments. Nobody's owning anything at Dorsey Overlook other than the landlord. We lost those 19 units in exchange for some number of rental units in Dorsey Overlook. And it's not clear to me that the intention is even to provide them, because that's how it came up, is we were like, whether or not, whatever they call whatever's going to happen next to Dorsey Overlook, there is a recorded lien on that property that says we have to provide these units in exchange for that $1.4 million we got from our lawyer's other client. And so it just, that Dorsey Overlook is the ugliest of the ugly I have ever seen. It keeps getting worse. Like, it just keeps getting worse. Every time I think we bottom out, we find some other fact, but that the Route 1 loud traffic can't sell. Like, they're going to sell it now. They're going to sell it for more than the $56,000 delta that you just accepted. It's disheartening. But not in a crushing, soul crushing way, just in a, I have to work harder kind of way.
Well,
Oh God.
I'm glad you have that. I'm glad that's your takeaway. But yes, well, I see we've got another hand raised from Joel Hurwitz.
Everybody and Liz. When I have more time, I discuss how I realized in the last few months that the hearing examiners haven't been legally appointed by the county council.
Oh my God.
But want to deal with the abortion resolution and 202G. The quick question is, I hope you plan on updating the resolution to reflect or amending it to that the opinion was issued, and whether you wanted to point out that even Kavanaugh pointed out that interstate commerce shouldn't be blocked for the women coming to the clinics in Maryland. On 202G, you've heard from me about half a dozen times, the council and the zoning board, and then you heard from several more people at the zoning board hearing, including Susan Gray, who wrote the referendum in 1994, that for everybody else's benefit, basically says that any amendment or restatement of the zoning maps or of the general plan requires a council bill, and the purpose was to give the power to the people to send to referendum any of those bills dealing with those developments. And the county has refused to ever implement it in the last 27 years. So what can you do on that to put one of these things before the council in the bill?
I think Deb is trying to do some of that on the zoning board side. until we get a third member on the council who's gonna support any of that, I don't I don't know how effective that will be. I talked with her and was definitely one of the ones that thought the best way to pitch this is something that needs to happen is get independent expert advice on some of those processes. And so my hope is that independent analysis will confirm some of the stuff we heard from Susan Gray in her testimony at the public hearing, because you know, she's been at this way longer than I have, but if Dorsey Overlook was horrible, you know, in the last 4 years, it seemed like she could tell a story like that for the last 20 or more. And I found it hard to hear even in public testimony as she kind of laid out everything that's wrong. You know, she had a lot of complaints with Office of Law, which I share, and she had a lot of complaints about the general lawlessness, which I also share. You know, the issue is always going to be, as a council member in a group of 5, I need to find 2 people who are going to agree with me and hold fast to that, right? Because there have been plenty of bills and efforts that that have initiated, but then people get carved off. You know, I become a really effective negotiating tool for some of my colleagues because they can be cajoled into a different opinion if the right offers are made. And then even when I have sponsors on a bill, all of a sudden what's actually being put forward on the actual vote date looks a lot different than what I thought my co-sponsors and I had, you know, intended to pursue. So it's a challenge, Joel. It's one of those pick your battles and be effective so you aren't burning out. And that one's a long haul. I know, you know, we hear you, and I think Deb is being more creative now about solving some of those issues, but it's definitely something that needs to be done. I don't know that we've settled on the right strategy yet in terms of actually affecting the change that we think needs to happen.
All right, well, regarding your independent advice, it's my reading of the charter that independent legal person firm also requires a council resolution.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. And you wrote that into us. So, okay. Did you, Joel?
I guess I shared that with Deb after you came up with that at the meeting on the 15th, that I shared it with the council administrator a couple months ago, and she apparently has not done anything. For it's the same reasons that it says that the county solicitor represents all the boards and commissions and the council, unless the council by resolution can hire financial or legal advice by resolution, and it says it in I guess 405 and 216. So it's going to push your schedule back, whatever that persons are.
Yeah.
So you can do that by September. That would help.
Well, thank you for that, Joel. And I see Drew, fellow D1er, Drew Ross got his hands up.
Yeah. Hi, Liz.
Hey, Drew.
Hey, I want to give you, I think you should take some credit. I want to give you credit for the forest conservation bill. I mean, it got watered down a lot, but I can only imagine how much more watered down it would have been if you had not been there. So, you know, I want to give you credit and good work for that, for not letting it get even weaker.
All right, thank you. There was a waiver bill too. That's
too,
one of
right.
our. There's
right.
I
The
mean,
whole suite, right? The stronger enforcement you got in, canceling the waivers, all of it. Nice job.
Thank you. I mean, that is poor Nicole. I don't know if you're having like traumatic flashbacks. I mean, that's part of our strategy, and that's why I'm saying like the behind the scenes thing is we realize if we can get people to file a bill, you know, that looks at least kind of where we want it to be, then that's a whole lot easier than us, you know, banging our head against the wall trying to get the perfect version in. And so we did see that happen with forest conservation because they knew we were coming. They did it with waivers too. We were like, what? They're going to file a waiver? What, 3 department heads now have to sign off on it? I don't know if that's really resulted in any material change, but we got District 5. We got the Republican to file a forest conservation enforcement bill that passed. That said everything we wanted to in terms of if you, bad actor developer, clear a site in anticipation of future development, you're going to be treated as though all those trees are still there and you're going to get a 5-year timeout. Like, what? Like, just.
And it's also really cool how that concept made its way into the very nice demolition by neglect bill.
Yep.
So that's another win. I mean, you know.
No,
so,
I know. I mean, I feel like, yes. No, that's what I'm saying. It has been a gruel, and it has been more grueling than I thought it was going to be. But we've taken on a lot, and I think we've achieved a lot. So I am definitely proud of that. But I'm happy that you mentioned that. It was Will Jamando in Montgomery County Council who also told me and Deb, it's not always what you are able to accomplish, but what you stop from happening. But also these kind of maneuverings, like, you know, like we'll take wins, however they happen. Like, we're not about the, self-aggrandizement. That's not my thing. We're here on issues. And if issues advance, even if at a pace we would, like to see go faster, we'll still take it.
Yeah, so it's good. I mean, and the thing is it inspires other people to engage, right? So, I just wanted to like say this encouragement, because you didn't sound encouraged at the start of the meeting, but really, it's really cool. Just think how bad it could be. Right. So anyway.
Good. I mean, yeah, yes, no, good. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And Harry, I see you've got your hand up.
Yes, that individual that gave the properties away for $56,000 per property, who did she work for? How was she able to do that?
It's Kelly Simino is the director of the department. I think, and we were trying to kind of circle around it, but it's hard to do so. I think there's a board, like there's a Department of Housing and Community Development board that approves these kinds of deals. So there's some cover there, but we've attended enough of these meetings to be like, it's just summary. She says, we recommend that you approve it. And they say, okay, we approve it. And then it's approved. And then ultimately, all of these department heads answer to the county executive.
Okay. So if she, in spite of the board, she could have said no to the $56,000 and done otherwise in regards to the board. But if the county executive wanted her to do otherwise, he could tell her to do otherwise, and she would have to do otherwise. Is that correct?
That's correct. And in that case, we don't see any good reason why that deal would have been struck.
Well, the only reason is because you have a county executive that supports development interests. Is that correct? Am I wrong there?
That is the only reason that we can see.
Thank you very much. I
agree with that. Yeah, and that's why we need Harry Dunbar for county executive in Howard County. So it looks like there are no other hands up. I have one little comment / question that I guess we can close out there, but thank you for your time. But my comment / question is one, you talk about well, first of all, I hope that we can get Joan Pontius to actually maybe flip District 5. I mean, I think China Williams got like 47% of the vote in 2018. So, and now Joan is qualified for the CEF and she'll have like $27,000 or so dollars. So that would be nice to flip it. But, let's say that if that doesn't happen for whatever reason, it's just you and Deb, and then the same, other 3 council members, same county executive. You're talking about it's going to be hard to like get a lot passed, just like it was hard the past 4 years being in the minority, getting things done. And I really think you / we should use the ICE bill in the way that played out as sort of the model of how to have these battles over the next 4 years. And how I interpret all that going down is you pick such a good issue that was so clearly kind of on the right side of things that you can effectively, with the help of outside groups, groups like ours, groups like that coalition, and with the help of the media, you were essentially able to pressure establishment council members. We were able to shame them into doing the right thing, at least temporarily. Christiana Rigby, she ended up voting to pass the bill. I'm sure that was, not something that they would have loved for her to do, but I think, just the public pressure was on her, and she felt like she had no choice but to do that. And so I think that, if you and Deb can work well together, and if we can establish more relationships with the outside groups, which I look forward to doing after the primary, assuming you and Deb get elected, I think that there are other issues like that we can kind of strategically choose to get these people to do the right things, and if they want to dig their heels in the sand, then they can pay the electoral price when they're next real. And that very well may happen to Calvin Ball because of what he did with the ICE contract, for all we know. So, I am, optimistic we might be able to get some things done. But my question is, you talked about, you said you're a lot more cynical, now than you were when you first got into it. And so my question is, now that you have been elected and you're getting the peek behind the curtain, is it like the sort of money and corruption? Is it so much worse than you even knew when you first got into it? And then also with the brutal attacks that you faced for, shining a spotlight on it, I know myself and many others on the call, we were scared, is Liz even going to run again? And you filed relatively last second, and I kept asking you leading up to that, are you going to run? Are you going to run? It's probably very annoying, so I'm sorry about that. But my question is, were you actually seriously considering not running again, or was that, I didn't know if that was you just holding your cards close to your chest? But because they really have been brutal, on you.
I did not want to enter into that decision lightly, but there's also this recognition that on the council, again, as a one of five, you don't have a lot of power. So there's a question of, would I be more effective doing something else, like running for county executive? and it was an issue where just where my family is, as a single parent, my babies are still pretty young. They are, the most important thing in the whole wide world to me. So anything I do is going to have to make sure that it takes care of them. So it was a little bit of, and the primary challenger announced way early. So that was kind of a done deal. And I laugh, but I think by doing that, she probably took the sail. Well, I should not try and use figures of speech. Whatever took the wind out of the sail, is that it? Stole the thunder. I'm guessing that the Democratic establishment would have put up a Jansen Evelyn in D1, but Naveen Kurtov beat him to the punch. So so she kind of helped me out there. I again have a hard time taking that as seriously as a challenger as I see Deb's contender in D4. But it is, and it is ugly, right? And so that it's a whole host of things. Nicole will tell you I'm a procrastinator. All lawyers are procrastinators. It's just it's unpleasant, the election stuff. Again, the fact that this stuff is coming from our own party is the hardest part. And it's the hard part as the actual elected official trying to get stuff done. And it's the hard part as a primary. And so, I get to see Courtney a lot, happily, at a lot of Camp Wilchester stuff recently. And she's always, she says the primaries are the worst. They're the worst because it's this friendly fire stuff. And I am a relatively newcomer to certainly local politics. This is not friendly fire. You see it with the Deb stuff. This is next level crazy. Instead of a Democratic establishment getting behind things like killing that referendum, making it a non-issue. Of course, everyone in this county is going to support the so-called Liberty Act, of including the county executive who ran on that issue 4 years ago. I don't see that. And I don't see them getting behind Joan Pontius. China came real close to taking out D5. And D5, David Youngman is running for county executive in 4 years. So you need to take that out, right? He's going to have 4 years running for county executive starting December of this year with no contest from the Democratic Party because they're too busy coming at Deb. I mean, the whole thing is broken. And then carry that through to what Nicole and I trudge through on a monthly basis. Half the bills we get, we're like, why on earth will we do this? What is the motivation behind this? You could spend weeks just trying to figure out what the backroom deal is that led to this stupid, inarticulate cost on my docket this month, because there's going to be another 20 in the next 6 months. Or, why are they coming so hard at me? It's something that's so not controversial. Everyone loves trees. What are we doing here? Coming at me with the buzzsaw, getting the fire department to come in and testify against a forest bill. Like, what is happening? So it is, way more cynical than ever before. What's happening with Deb, the complete kind of disconnect between what the Democratic Party should be doing here, at the local level, and then you carry that up, right? You carry it all the way to the federal level, and you see how we get in a place where we have 3 justices calling the shots who shouldn't be on the bench. I feel my generation has a moral culpability here, right? I don't know if we're all goof-offs or what, but I really wish that I had gotten more engaged. Like when I was your age, Jake, and Kiana, like something went really wrong from the bottom to the top. And I couldn't tell you exactly when it was, but I obviously can't change. I cannot incarnate Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I can't make whole changes there, but I will do my damnedest at this local level. And as soon as we get out of this primary, I think, there, and I hope you guys, at least some of you are there at the Democratic Central candidate level, because it's got to change. And the only way that we can change it, I see here at the local level, is in our own local politics. And I do, just like you said, Drew, I see a lot more company than I had 4 years ago. I see a lot more success doing kind of what we did 4 years ago. So I know it's possible. I would like a lot more company doing it, but it really matters a lot. And as cynical as I am, I continue to be hopeful, because I think, what we do is exactly that. Is we bring more people into this conversation. Is we get people empowered to use their own voice and to take their own action and make those incremental changes, because it's got to change. It's got to change at the local level, and it's got to change all the way up. But yeah, someone wrote round to the core, and I do not disagree. I will stop with this final thing is, obviously, Ellicott City, that's kind of what got me here. Alan Kittleman is doing these like podcast things where he interviews himself and other people who adore him, and he posts them on a YouTube channel. And for whatever reason, I don't think he did it recently, but he posted it recently. He did this hour-long segment with 2 business owners on Main Street in Old Ellicott City, and John Weinstein. And I think the point of it is to not make fun of, but to just, basically say Calvin is dragging his feet and not doing enough on Flowworks projects in Old Ellicott City. I can't say I disagree with that. I don't like a lot of the projects that are proposed, but that's a whole other issue. But the crazy part is and just like some of the Democrats are doing with Deb, in the effort to discredit Calvin, they basically acknowledge a pay-to-play scheme that was in place before Citizens Election Fund. It is John Weinstein and Alan Kittleman like riffing about how in the olden days they used to take developer money and had to take those calls and do what those callers told them to do because they took all that cash money, and now they don't have to. And these are former elected officials sitting next to business owners. And in Kelly lives there too, but people who live there, who lived through this hell more than once, because of the decisions that they were making themselves or allowing to happen at lower levels, because of this influence that they're now, lauding themselves for having cast aside. But the only words missing from that conversation that this man posted on his own re-election campaign site is pay to play. Those are the only words missing. They basically lay it out. They mention Howard Hughes, like Howard Hughes would come and tell me to do this and I would have to do it. And now I don't. I mean, I'm not imagining it. I've seen enough to know it's really, really bad.
Well, you know, if the solution to Ellicott City flooding was to tear down Main Street, it'd probably be done by now. So, you know, they got a point.
And that is, I mean, that's their point.
Yeah.
But again, not get into that, Mary. But just as an aside, you know, like that was the discussion. So I guess, you know, they could have gotten all riled up about that and been right, because you're right. Although we still don't have all the permission that we need to do that, as you will know, Drew. I think you were still on the Historic Preservation Commission when that came up before you guys, but they don't have CSX approval yet, and probably others. But
by the way,
yeah,
it was
that
the worst thing I ever had to deal with on the Historic Preservation Commission. It was like, that's just brutal.
It was.
Yeah, kind of glad that's behind me.
Well, thank you. You know, Liz, what you said about, you know, Liz Walsh, County Executive, you know, that was music to my ears. So definitely, let's talk, you know, 2026. But let's first get you reelected. That's step
Let's
one.
get to July 19th. Yeah,
Of
okay.
course, yes.
And
Step
then
one,
November.
get you reelected. We talk, you know, more long term. But that's also interesting what you say about David Youngman for County Executive, because I had never really thought that. But assuming Kittleman does not win in this cycle, that is probably what would happen. Youngman probably would run for county executive. Yeah. So we'll. I think Kittleman might be in there this year though, but we'll see. But yeah. So well, it looks like there are no other comments or questions. So I'm sorry it was we took so much of your time, Liz. But thank you so much. Thank you everybody who came. As always, if people want to become a dues paying member, follow us on social media, subscribe to our email list. Please check out our link tree. It has all of those links and more. I'm putting it in the chat here. It is linktr.ee/HoCo Progressive. So thank you all.
Hey, Jay, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Say one more thing. So the actual thing that we're focusing on this year, or this year, my kids make fun of me. My words don't, the end of my, anyhow. This week, the thing we're focusing on this week as the campaign is putting up the big signs. People freaked out when the Curtum signs went up all over. So we bought a bunch of stupid plastic trash signs that we're going to put up. But if you know of locations where a homeowner or property owner would be willing to have a 32 by 48 inch sign in their home, I know you're on our list, Lisette. That's why I said, oh, I better make this announcement, because Lisette has a great location on St. John. But we have a bunch of them, more than we would need, and we have the crew ready to put them up. So just get to me any locations. Even if you have like a lead, I'm happy to cold call them and be like, hello. So when's he can run for re-election? Joel, he says that in that same videotape. But that's all. Sorry, Jake. Sorry to interrupt. But yeah, let me know about big sign locations.
No problem. And feel free to put your donation link or website in the chat, or plug it right now if you want. If donations are still helpful at this point, but no. Okay. Yes, she got a lot of CDF money, but yeah. So thank you everybody. Can I would like to motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Drew.
You said you don't see my comments, Joel? Which comments? Oh, well, we'll talk about it after. Okay. All right. All in favor? Aye. To adjourn?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Okay. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Good luck, Liz.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.